Welcome to the American Conservation Experience podcast. Get ready to meet the inspiring individuals who are the driving force of conservation projects across the country. From the towering peaks of our national parks to the vital ecosystems of our wildlife refuges and beyond, we'll introduce you to the dedicated people who are making a tangible difference. Join us as we shine a light on the often unsung heroes who build and maintain our trails, revitalize crucial habitats, and so much more, all powered by the energy and commitment of thousands of young adults. So let's dive in and explore the world of conservation together. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the American Conservation Experience podcast. I'm Dave Bastian, a division director at ACE, and today we're going to talk about backcountry endeavors and the way it relates to our work. And I've got two guests here that I really love to work with, and I'm excited for you all to meet them. Caroline Cantor and Kian Ruan. And I'd love to just kind of have you guys introduce yourselves to our audience, if you don't mind. And let's start with Caroline. What do you do here at ACE? Who are you?
Thanks, Dave. Excited to be here. I am Caroline Cantor. I am our accounts receivable and collections manager. I've been at ACE for 7 years now, I think, and I've worked in the conservation world in and out for over a decade now, which is wild. And I have worked in our program, our finance, and our central operations across ACE as a whole.
Yeah, and I believe that you also have another endeavor you're involved in that relates to what we're talking about today. Is that right?
Yeah. Aside from my work at ACE, I also teach our backpacking courses at the University of Utah. So I get folks out in the field that are first time to backcountry experiences, and it's one of my favorite and personal endeavors.
I can't wait to talk more about that. I'm very excited to dive into that a little bit. But first, Kid, who are you? What do you do?
Thanks, Dave, and happy to be here. Yeah, Kian Ruan. I am the division director for our Flagstaff-based crew program and our hurricane-based crew program. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and after studying and receiving a degree in theater, I decided that instead of pursuing that, I would move out west and try out this Conservation Corps thing as a member. And I started there and have been with ACE for 15 years. Absolutely fell in love with the work, fell in love with being out west, being outside, and have never looked back.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you have a theater background. I also love that some of us in the Corps world are alums, some of us aren't. I think it's good to have a good mix, but I think we mostly need those alums here to kind of tell us all about how things are supposed to work. I have a crew background as well, but my job now is working with interns, which I also love. So excited to dive into all of this with the two of you. Kind of the first thing I want to talk about is one of the things I think that's wonderful about the Corps world is you can show up with zero experience in a lot of what we do, a backcountry camp, any of it, camping. You can show up with zero experience and you can build that experience. Kian, can you tell us a little bit about how you build that experience, how you take somebody who's maybe never camped in their life and shape them into a fantastic crew member?
Yeah, we get people from such a variety of backgrounds who have some camping experience, maybe some car camping experience they've done with their parents growing up, or maybe have done some backpacking, but just as many folks who have never set up a tent in their entire lives. So when we bring people into the program, we ask those questions. What's your camping background? Have you done this before? And then we work with them to teach them those skills. We have a 2-day orientation for all of our members who come into the program, and we go over things like what to look out for when you're in the field. We talk about wildlife and safety. We give people tents and talk about how they set them up. We actually have them set them up at one of our warehouses, so they're used to it. We also go over what do you pack when you go into the field for 8 days at a time. What's really important to have, what's not as important to have. And then when they go into the field or when they're preparing to, they also, our members, will meet with their crew leaders beforehand to go over what do they need, what's this specific project going to look like. We work in such a variety of areas. We might be down in the low desert and it might be very warm, or we might be way up in the mountains at 10 or 11,000 feet. So those are very different things to prepare for. So we make sure that we really talk to our members about what that looks like, what they need, and then sort of meet people where they're at as far as their experience level and go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Caroline, you're doing something similar in your University of Utah endeavor, but I suspect you're doing it not so these folks can go off and professionally build trails or conduct habitat restoration, but their own kind of personal backcountry adventures. How is it similar? How is it different?
I think that's a great question and very easily parallel to the crew experience when you're getting into the backcountry. But similarly, my courses will fill up with students that have a bit of experience with car camping or grew up in Utah, which is where we're based, and know that there's a ton of backcountry experience to be had, but don't know how to approach it. We've also had students that have never hiked more than 5 miles in their life. So you get the whole variety. And in a similar way to we do with crew programs, I have in-classroom sessions before we go out into the field for our backpacking experiences, where we're teaching students how to pack a backpack, what gear goes into that backpack, and why it goes into that backpack, what food and nutrition looks like in the backcountry, especially because it's a new experience and bodies act differently. And, we go through a long list to make them feel as prepared as possible when they're going into this new experience. I specifically teach desert backpacking courses, which, as Kian alluded to, you teach differently for the environments that you're going into. And desert is a really unique one, which takes a bit more preparation. So with my students, we focus on water and water filtration and different things to be aware of versus being in high elevation or alpine terrain. So really similar, just with a different output.
Yeah, but probably in both cases, just enjoying seeing the transformative power these experiences have with people.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Kian, I want to talk a little bit about sort of after kind of post-training, how do you prepare these folks to be successful once they're actually setting up a tent in the backcountry and not just in the warehouse?
So there's a lot of different ways that we prepare people. Like I said, we do the initial training. Some of our divisions, our California division, I was just speaking to their director, and they actually, for some of their projects, will hire a specific crew and put on a 2-week training for them where they might go into the field or even to the backcountry for a day or two and practice these skills in a controlled environment where they're not as far away from amenities. The other way that we often prepare our folks is by doing it. We often will have our members go out in the field and they might be on a front country project. And so they're car camping. And that's kind of what we refer to as front country, is you have your vehicle right there. So they'll actually spend a couple different projects, maybe a month on a front country project, get used to it. They understand how to set up their tent. They're camping in a variety of weather that we get and getting used to it, and also going on larger hikes and carrying tools and all the gear. And then once they've done that and they show interest, then they're kind of self-selecting into our backcountry programs where they have a little bit of experience and they're more used to it going in. And then they work with their crew leaders to really hone in on how does it look different? How does it look different to be in the backcountry versus the front country? What kind of gear don't you need? I think that's one of the most important questions that you need to ask, because in the front country, you could bring everything, including the kitchen sink. So it's the back country. You almost think about it like your backpack is your car, right? That's got all your gear, and you really want to think about what you actually need. And that's where our crew leaders come in to really work with them individually and like, you need this, you don't need this. This is really important. And so working with them, they really get that honed in training.
Yeah. Can you expand a little bit on who the crew leaders are? Where are they coming from? Knowing the importance of crew leads, I'd love to dive into that a little deeper.
Yeah, so our crew leaders come from all over. They tend to be members who have been in the Corps for 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years. So they're really building a lot of experience within ACE's program. And through their leadership and their dedication, they've really demonstrated that they're going to be able to lead people well in the field. One of the things, speaking specifically about the backcountry, that we do for our crew leaders to ensure that we are having the safest possible programming is that all of them receive a wilderness first responder, which is a relatively high level medical course. I think it's about 8 days in length generally, very intensive, to provide them with a lot of that high level first aid training. So if something were to happen in the backcountry, they can adapt to that. And so they're receiving that training. They also generally have a lot of experience in the backcountry themselves, both as members and as leaders as well. And these are individuals who tend to be, when they're in the backcountry as well, tend to be carrying the most weight. They're planning the logistics of every day, because the crew, not only do they hike in for a long time, it could be several miles, 8 miles, 12 miles, but then each day they're hiking out extensively as well. So they're planning those trips, showing that everybody has the gear they need, is packed with the food that they're going to need for the day, and have the right tool set. So it's a really important job logistically. The responsibilities on them for safety is really high as well. And it's one of the most important positions that we have here in the organization.
Yeah, the linchpin of everything. So what you're saying is mostly they're alums who have shined, and they go on to leadership past that, after that.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We also do hire from outside the organization for our crew leaders, but those individuals usually are also coming in with pretty extensive experience in the field of conservation, whether that's with a different corps, a different organization.
Yeah. So kind of shifting a little bit, Caroline, I'd love to just hear from you about what some of the challenges you face with somebody who's maybe coming into your program and with next to no outdoor experience. What are the biggest physical barriers or adjustments they have as they're getting into this endeavor?
There's always a lot of answers to that question. I think it's interesting the variety of students that show up to start with. You have ones that have just read an overview of the course online and said, that sounds like a good idea to me. And I love those students the most because they're coming in with zero experience, zero knowledge, kind of zero understanding of what they're about to get themselves into. Most of the time, it's a wonderful experience. Backpacking and backcountry is not comfortable to start with. And so I think it's amazing to see the grit in folks that they don't know they have. Every course I teach, there's at least one student who has never gone backpacking, has never gone camping, and they're not living in a crew world where they're doing manual labor every day. They're coming from a student experience where they're sitting in a classroom and walking around campus, and that might be all the activity they do. The beauty of being a course leader is that we get to cater our trips to the student experience. So if you have a ton of incredibly experienced students, we're going to have a longer and more challenging route. If we have a ton of new students, we're going to have a shorter and less challenging route. But backpacking in, as Kian said, the whole car is a physical endeavor. And it's pretty apparent pretty quickly how heavy a backpack weighs on a student and the discomfort that appears just by being in a different state of carrying weight. I teach my courses in the desert, and that is also quite an uncomfortable experience to start with, too. It gets to be freezing at night and can be 80, 90 during the day. I teach these in the shoulder seasons, and the temperatures and weather is still extreme. So having students fully immersed in this honestly incredibly uncomfortable environment is such a cool experience to see them have to experience it and figure out what works for them. Almost every course you have those students come out and say, I'm so proud of myself for doing this, and I can't wait to do this again. And it's a really great reminder that being in the backcountry and backpacking and trying on these things, these activities, really teaches you to push yourself and learn new things about oneself. I don't know if that really answered the question. I just rambled a little bit on it.
Definitely it did. I mean, I think sometimes, I'd love to hear what you think about this, Kian, but I think sometimes it's also great to have somebody come out of this experience say, I'm so proud of myself that I did that, and I never want to do it again. And I think that's also a voyage of discovery. In our case, we've kept somebody from maybe going down a career path of public lands management, and maybe now they'll go work under fluorescent lights in a bank, and that's not terrible, right? I mean, what is the saying? You can put a ladder against a wall and climb it. Just make sure it's a wall you want to be on. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that as well, haven't you, Kian?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I've absolutely seen both sides of it. I've seen the side where he was hiking in and they're 4 miles in and they have a 50-pound pack on and they're carrying a hand tool in each hand. And they're just like, I'm going to die. I think this is it. And then 8 days later, they come out and, they're like a changed person. They're like, wow, I never knew I could do this. And I want to do this forever now. And then you have the other side of that spectrum. Same thing. That person is like, I think I'm going to die. And they get through it. They persevere. And they come out and they're like, oh, yes, what an experience that I never want to have again. But even for those folks, what's really cool is they will tell that story for the rest of their life. When they're in the bank or wherever under those fluorescent lights, they'll still be like, well, this one time I wandered into the wilderness. You get both sides. And I think both are really valuable experiences. And yeah, absolutely. I think people need to experience it first to know if it's going to be for them, for sure.
100%. So yeah, it's a good pivot. I think I'd love to hear just some funny or surprising stories that you have experienced in the backcountry, either from leading or just personal endeavors. I'd have to admit, Carolina, I thought maybe the thing you were going to say first right off the bat was pooping, because I feel like a lot of people, that is the biggest barrier when they get into any kind of a backcountry endeavor. I'm definitely curious how far we should go into explaining to our listeners who might not know what a wag bag is, whether we should even delve into that. I don't know. I will let either one of you decide.
That one specifically is an incredibly funny one because we have desert courses and you can't bury waste in the desert, so you must pack it all out. And teaching that is the only thing that makes every single jaw drop every time you're explaining what you have to do with wag bags and carrying them out. I think this is a funny anecdote that every course we end up counting the number of wag bags that get used, and everybody ends up applauding every time a wag bag gets used because we're all just so proud that people are comfortable with the experience and sharing that. I really love having to explain wag bags and teach folks about wag bags, and then everybody's pride on the wag bag front in the return.
I'm definitely curious how far we should go into explaining to our listeners who might not know what a wag bag is, whether we should even delve into that. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Either one of you decide.
Well, I'll just say it is amazing how comfortable you get in the conservation world, and whether you're in the front country or backcountry talking about poop. You get four conservationists at a dinner table at a restaurant, it's gonna come up. There's rating systems for like what the view was like. Yes, I don't think we need to go too far, but we can talk about it for days. It's very strange.
And we can and we have talked about it for days.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. Shifting from that topic, I'd also love to hear just sort of maybe some of the most memorable wildlife experiences that either of you have had, again, both in leading your programs and in just your own personal.
Sure. I have one that jumps to mind immediately. I've held several roles with ACE, but one of my favorites was a project manager, and that position sort of plans the projects. And one of the things that we do is we go on site visits. So we go check out the area, the trail beforehand. And I was on a site visit with a colleague many years ago, and we were in the Pecos wilderness. We were backpacking. It was just a single night backpacking trip, but the trail went away. And we knew kind of where we were on the mountain, but you could kind of call us lost. So we're hiking down a game trail, looking for a trail that would get us back to our vehicle. And we're walking along, my colleague's 50 feet behind me, and this large shape appears above a fallen tree. And my literal first thought was, what is that? Some kind of mountain hippopotamus? And then immediately I'm like, nope, that's a bear. So I call back that there's a bear to my colleague, and he just turns around and runs away. He had heard the adage that you don't need to outrun the bear, you just need to outrun your friend, and just abandons me. This bear comes around the tree and charges me. And it may have been like the scariest moment of my entire life. But thankfully, it was a bluff charge. The bear immediately peeled off and ran away. But it was certainly a moment that will stick in my brain for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you don't forget those encounters. Never. You never forget an encounter like that.
No, it was wild. But it's one of those things, you do have wildlife that, those things can happen. And in the backcountry, you need to be prepared. Our members carry bear spray. When they're out there, they travel in groups. So they do everything they can to make sure that they're staying safe.
Whew, that's a wild one. Yeah. I'd also just like to hear, and maybe this one I'll direct at you, Caroline, just are there moments where you've seen a participant's confidence just completely transform during an experience?
Okay, so I had a course with a non-traditional student last year, and she was probably twice the age of a regular college student, and joined this course to essentially prove to herself that she could do things that were big and hard. And going in to the beginning of our course, so we teach backpacking over 3 days in the field. And at the trailhead, as we're hiking in, you can see the unease in her and the discomfort and the shifting of a pack. And every time we sit down to take a break and drink water and eat a snack, she's still figuring things out. And every day you just see her settle in a little bit more. And at every meal, we got to see her settle in a little bit more. She would ask questions of other members of the group of like, what does your stove do? How does it work? Can you teach me how to use mine? And understanding that the experience is a communal experience, especially when you have all these resources around you in a uncomfortable desert backpacking environment. And on the last day of our course, we did a reflection, and she ultimately just ended up sobbing because she was so proud of herself and felt so comfortable and so amazed at what everybody was able to teach her and how she felt like she did have the skills. She just needed somebody else to tell her without telling her to be in the backcountry and to feel confident in picking routes and going out on her own and exploring in the way that she wants to explore. And her sobbing turned into everybody else sobbing. And it was just such a beautiful, I think, reflection from someone that came in looking so uneasy to somebody hiking out with strength in their feet and in their chin and being so excited to continue to do this on their own. Honestly, my favorite experience I've had on a backpacking course.
Yeah, those are the paydays for sure. I love those moments.
Yeah, there's almost too many in our courses, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. You ever get the joyful tears keying in the field, or do you just yell at them and say there's no crying in Conservation Corps?
Yeah, very different experience.
Yeah, am I the one having the joyful tears, or? Not as much. I've seen some frustration tears for sure, but also have absolutely seen that kind of transformation. And the cruise side of it, it usually is like where you really see the first glimpse of that is on day 2, where they've hiked in and they've done it, and then they get up and they put on their day pack that day. It might be the same pack they wore in, but now it only has what they need for the day. And to see them get up and you're like, oh, I'm still here and I know I can do this. And then you go out and you hit the trail and you do your project work for the day, which could be maintaining a trail, building a dry stone retaining wall. And they're like, I've done the backcountry thing and now I'm out here. They feel like they've risen to a next level, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah. Do you think, is the hike in on a hitch the bigger hurdle, or is the work a bigger hurdle, or are they both? I mean, our work requires just a lot of resilience, a lot of strength, inner strength, truthfully. But what has been the bigger hurdle for a lot of people, or is it both?
Classic answer, it depends. But I think generally it's the hike in. Now that varies, of course. We have backcountry projects that are 4 miles in over relatively flat terrain. And we have hikes that are 12 miles in where they gain, 3,000 vertical feet, something like half a mile. They go up and they're carrying 55 pounds. And those can be really difficult for folks. And then maybe when they get to their campsite, and then they only have a mile or 2 hike to their work site. So yeah, I've seen the hike be the thing that really challenges people, not only physically, but also mentally.
Yeah. What personal qualities help somebody succeed in these endeavors? I mean, I definitely, from my experience, you can't just pick somebody out and say this person's going to thrive and this person's not, because so often people shock you. And some of the ones you think are going to excel are the ones who at the end of it say, that was awesome, I'm never doing that again, and vice versa. What do you see if you were going to try to distill it down into an essence?
Well, I think backcountry hitches are the most immersive experience one gets in the field, from work to personal enjoyment, right? And it takes a special type of person to embrace that. So not looking at it through the lens of like somebody that finds comfort in discomfort or somebody that has grit. It's somebody that finds, I think, so much joy and adventure in just being outside, because a front country experience does provide you being outside all the time, but it's less immersive. And backcountry allows you to feel kind of wild the whole time. And I speak to that, I think, from my own love of backcountry. Backcountry hitches in my crew days were my favorite because you're living and working and existing completely in this wild environment. And everything that you're doing is to support you and the work. And in your free time, you can explore everything that you're surrounded by. And it's something beautiful to just, I think, care so much about where you are and be so intrigued by where you are. So that type of person who just loves the adventure of being outside.
Yeah. So a sense of adventure. If you were going to distill it down to one thing, that was it.
And I think what's also sort of inherent in that sense of adventure is being able to sort of deal with the unknown. I always joke with folks that it's not an adventure until something goes wrong. And what I've always found for people who really succeed across the spectrum of their background or their physical fitness or anything is positivity and being able to roll with those punches and turn a negative situation into a positive and reframe how you're thinking about it, whether that's you're caught in a thunderstorm and you're hunkering down because of terrifying lightning overhead and you're soaking wet, and just being able to stay positive and reframe that. And again, this is an adventure, this is wild, and that's awesome, as opposed to like, I'm wet and I'm cold and this is miserable, even though there's a little bit of that in the moment.
Yeah. I love that we didn't say experience. You can show up with zero experience, but that sense of adventure and that willingness to roll with it, and we can shape that.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about our crew program and about the variety of people that we get to work with. Yeah, because most of them don't have experience. I didn't. My first full hitch and ace was a backcountry. I had a janky 80-liter pack that none of the zippers worked and all the straps were broken. I had this super heavy 4-person tent, and I was one of those people on my first hike thinking like, I'm going to die. I think my hips are going to leave my body, and it was awful. But now it's something I love to do. It's something I do in my personal life all the time. I love providing that to other people so they can go and experience it as well.
Yeah. So if Kian today could offer baby Kian 3 tips on how he could have made that endeavor better, what would they be?
Having good gear is helpful, though it's not absolutely necessary. I think that when people think about gear for the backcountry, I think that's one of the things that's actually very daunting because it can be all very expensive. So I think maybe like get like one piece of gear that's really going to make your experience better. And for me, that would be a good pack. So that would be one tip. Have the opportunity, practice hiking with weight. Doesn't need to be 8 miles. It doesn't need to be going in the backcountry, but take a day pack, put some extra weight in it. Water's a really good thing to carry because it's very heavy. So just get used to having weight on your shoulders, weight on your hips. And then for me, good socks. Don't skimp on your socks. They're important. Oh, I guess, and also never ever allow hot spots to grow into blisters. People often don't want to stop. They don't want to address that. And that's so important because once you have a blister in the backcountry, that is all you're going to be thinking about every time you put your foot down.
Definitely. Caroline, I want to hear your best packing hack that makes a difference in both comfort and safety.
Ooh, in both comfort and safety.
Oh, you can pick one. We don't need to make it too hard.
I was like, I can definitely provide comfort ones. Okay, so safety, I think a water filter, no matter where you are. They're so affordable and small these days. You can carry a water filter this big and you can screw it onto a water bottle. And especially with the desert, you never know if you're going to have a water source or not, but it's pretty easy to spill water and not have something to back you up. So water filters are tiny, light, easy, never travel anywhere without that. Also an emergency blanket. I've had too many people I know end up in situations that could be a lot better, a lot more comfortable, a lot safer if they had an emergency blanket. So that's something I carry and have other folks carry in a backpack, regardless of if it's a day pack or an overnight pack. And then for comfort, there are those sleeping pads, the Z-Lite sleeping pads, which are lightweight. They're probably the cheapest sleeping pad there is around, the most commonly seen one. If you cut 2 sections of that off to make it about this big, you have a seat wherever you want. And it is the most comfortable thing when you get tired of sitting on rocks and uneven ground. I started doing that a couple of years ago. Some of my students do it. All my friends do it. it is a game changer, especially as you get older.
So water, a blankie, and a comfortable spot to sit.
Yeah, I think all three of those are, game changers.
Let's close this out maybe by just talking for a moment to a hypothetical listener who has never ventured outdoors and is wanting to do it. And we'll start with you, Kian. What would you say to them to kind of help them know that we offer those opportunities and that this is an excellent place to learn these skills and to develop a love for these activities, these endeavors?
Sure. I think one thing that's almost become a theme of this conversation is that you really don't need experience. Thankfully, we have some really incredible staff who have all the experience needed to teach anyone the skills to do it. Also, we have a lot of different programs that can ease you into spending time outdoors and spending time in the front country and then building up to being in the backcountry. So we have a lot of good beta on what kind of gear you would need, really good cheap options. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to get into this, and literally anyone can do it. If you have any interest in spending time out in the wild places all over this nation, we have an option for you that'll meet you exactly where you're at is in regards to your personal experience level.
I love that. Meet you where you are. Caroline, anything to add to that?
I think
It looked like you were getting ready to say something amazing. So
well, I think Kian hit the nail on the head, but just a reminiscent reminder that our crew programs do provide one with the opportunity to explore, I think, truly the most beautiful and wild places in the country. It is how myself and Kian and you as well have seen and lived in these amazing places. And our crew program, if you're willing to be elastic and jump into new adventures, you don't have to come with a lot other than that. And you'll see some amazing things.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have to admit, though, usually now, these days, I do it more on a raft than carrying a backpack because I then can bring the kitchen sink and still have the wilderness experience. But I have mass respect for backpacking.
They're both wonderful.
Well, they're both wonderful. I know you get off on a raft as well often. So last question to you both. Thinking to the future, what would success in conservation look like to the two of you? Caroline, let's ask you first and go to Kian.
I think, in short, a continuation of our programming and a continuation of involving more youth in the field and getting folks out to experience these opportunities.
Thanks, Caroline. That was fantastic. Kian, same question to you. What does the future of conservation look like? What's success?
I think for me, and thinking about it through the lens of ACE a little bit, is that we continue to create ambassadors for conservation into the future. As we said earlier, we have the folks who spend time in our program and then go into conservation as a career, and we have people who spend 8 days in the backcountry and never step foot in it again. For me, success would be both of those individuals go on to be proponents for conservation for the rest of their lives.
Well, this has been awesome to talk to the two of you. Yeah, I feel like I haven't shared the space with the two of you in a bit, so it's very fun to have this conversation about something that we all love so much. And I've enjoyed our time together. So thanks a lot for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thanks, Caroline. I'll talk about spending time in the backcountry any day of the week. This has been great. Appreciate it.
And it's been a delight to catch up on some fun subjects with both of you and to be here on this podcast.
Yeah, I love it. There you have it, folks. If you are a young adult who thinks they would enjoy this experience, or if you know a young adult who you think might enjoy this experience, visit our website at usaconservation.org. And thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Also, be sure to check out our website at usaconservation.org. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you'll continue to be part of our journey as we go behind the scenes with the dedicated individuals working tirelessly to protect and preserve our natural wonders.